Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jamie Oberlander. I'm an education officer with USAID, beaming in from Nairobi, Kenya. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this session on navigating COVID-19 and beyond, a toolkit for running a virtual business. Today, we're joined by two excellent speakers, Mr. Paul Mugambi and Mr. Adalai Bari. Mr. Mugambi is the general manager of Baobab Circle Limited, a leading health technology company in Africa. He previously headed innovation and product development at Safaricom, the most profitable company in East and Central Africa, which was the first company to implement mobile money globally. He is also the board chair of Kitabu Company Limited, the creators of the first low-cost education content leasing platform in Kenya. With over 20 years experience as a telecommunications engineer, he is passionate about technopreneurship. Welcome, Mr. Mugambi. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Adalai Bari. He was a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow in the Business and Entrepreneurship track. He has more than 8 years experience in computer engineering, business intelligence for IT and telecom, with an MBA in business and entrepreneurship. Mr. Bari is a seasoned entrepreneur who's founded 2 startups. Innova Lab, a pioneer innovation accelerator located in Guinea-Bissau, and BIG Technologies, a software development company that represents tech giants such as Microsoft and HP. Adalai is an entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem builder, a youth employment and digital economy specialist, and an internationally recognized ambassador for the One Young World and Next Einstein Forum. Following his time with YALI, he decided to leave his job and do entrepreneurship full-time. He now employs over 20 young people and supports the government and UNDP in the digital transformation of his country. Welcome, Adalai. So with no further ado, Mr. Mugambi, I'm turning the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for that elaborate introduction. And welcome, everyone. I'm speaking from Nairobi, Kenya, enjoying the evening sunset from where I'm seated. As Jamie has introduced me, I'm actually the general manager for Baobab Circle, which is a health technology company, primarily focusing on non-communicable diseases. And we use technology primarily to help people who are living with these chronic illnesses to better manage themselves. And on the other hand, I'm also the board chair of Kitabu. Kitabu is an education technology company that actually provides education content for children in Africa. And I just want to say that the COVID situation actually hit the country and the globe very drastically. Very few people are planned or ready for such a very tough situation. But as a company, we were able, because we are a small companies. Actually, the 2 companies are not very, very big. Each of them has got about 20 employees. We were able actually to quickly adjust and be able to address the needs. Now, the way COVID actually affected business is that in Africa especially, the moment people are not earning as much as they used to, people easily stop spending money on things like mobile applications, which they feel may not be need. And people now retreat and start using the money for other things like food, shelter, and other things. So as a business, we were actually affected because now our users were not actually willing to pay so much. And so we have to devise other methods for us to survive. And from the health technology solution, which is that we provide, we had to repurpose the app so that it could address the COVID need. Because people who are living with diabetes and hypertension were most affected, actually. They actually, they were the most affected in terms of the deaths that were taking place. The people with underlying conditions were most affected. And so many of them even stopped going to hospitals because of being infected. So we use our app to address that situation by addressing their needs from home. And one of the services that we introduced, what we call a doctor service, so that people with diabetes, hypertension, and some of those other non-communicable diseases could call a doctor and get a tele right from the comfort of their homes. Then secondly, we also focused on providing patient education. And then thirdly, we also gave them a channel where they could chat with our doctors. So we had to hire a few more extra doctors to assist with the chat service. And then finally, our platform actually does what we call health records. A health record means tools that can actually plug onto mobile phones, and patients can be able to measure their blood sugar, blood pressure, and a few that data is stored. And the good thing is a doctor can remotely be able to see these records and can be able to assist a patient. So as a company, we had to enter in survival mode. Meant we had to think very, very quickly. And so what we did is we did a risk of our situation, and we did a risk assessment plan. We looked at our business. If things don't change, if COVID does not go away for 2 years, what happens to us? And so we came up with a business case. And this business case actually was a worst case scenario. In case things are very bad, how do we survive? And actually the business case informed the decisions that we made. And some of the decisions we made was to cut costs on all the non-core functions. We had to let go of a few people. Some offices had to close since people now had to retreat and work from home. We adopted the use of technology to manage the team, and especially our team, which is geographically dispersed. We have a team in Kenya, a team in Uganda, a team in, and we have at least 1 or 2 people in the UK. So we had to adapt the use of technology to manage the team. And I think it's worked quite well. Then thirdly, we looked at the situation and asked ourselves, with this wave of COVID coming in, if we do not adjust and start riding that wave, we might sink. So what we did is we signed a partnership with the Ministry of Health in Kenya to provide this teleconsultation for patients in Kenya. And we saw people actually making calls for Kitabu, which is the education technology company. There was such because now children started reading and studying from home, there was a demand for content. So we had to beef up that particular area of business. And looking forward, what is it that we would really want to do? One, it's very clear that things may not change very soon. So we are actually have adapted the new normal, and we know this situation is here to stay for a while. And so for us, we have to repurpose. We have to repurpose what we do for us to remain relevant and to be able to achieve the objectives of the 2 companies that I manage. And one of the things that we've really kept at top of mind is to remain agile, to be able to make quick decisions, and also being highly predictive of what might be happening. And so because of being that predictive, we are able to think ahead and be able to provide solutions that actually the users need. And so basically that's what we've been doing situation in Kenya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mugambi. Adalai, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for YALI 10 team for organizing this and giving us the opportunity to share our experience and some tools with our fellows Africans, but also entrepreneurs around the world. So I'm going to start with the challenges to say basically in Africa, to run a virtual business is not an easy task because of the infrastructure challenges. There is challenges about access to electricity, telco infrastructure. You know, for example, in my country, we are one of the countries that are not connected to the submarine cable to be able to have a high speed access to internet, and also there is a problem of diversification on the type of technology. I mean, you have normally the fiber, you have different other technologies that can be used. I mean, it's really important to diversify, but unfortunately, if we want to use the VSAT, there is a challenges because of our climate, our solar system and everything. And also you have the issue of digital literacy. Many of our people don't have these abilities, to navigate around website, around mobile applications, but there's still opportunities if you look at on the mobile penetration. We have about more than 80% of mobile penetration in Africa, and this is a good number and a good opportunity. So people can learn easily, even if they don't go to school or they don't have access to digital literacy programs. I mean, there is an opportunity on that. And today we are in the world where easily we can have access to enabling technology, online courses, free online programs to be able to basically try to upgrade our knowledge, try to upgrade our technologies. And the last opportunity I wanted to share, I think it's also the momentum in Africa. Many of the government are engaging a lot of money to invest in digital and technology infrastructure. You have a lot of hubs and incubators, active incubators in Africa. In 2018, they were counted about 442 active hubs in Africa. So this is for me a momentum, and the COVID comes, like said Mr. Paul. COVID shows us that it's important to readapt, to be more resilient, so that we can readapt our businesses. So basically, what I can share, we try, like you said, I'm a co-founder of two startups. The first one is Big Technology. So it's big, like we want to become a big, maybe we are not big yet. But Big Technology, we develop solutions. We also are, like you said, we represent Microsoft, HP. And what we did, it's normally we have a showroom in our offices, so people can come and buy equipment and see equipment there. But with COVID, we rebuilt our platform, our web portal, so that we can have an e-commerce section on the web portal, so that people maybe they will need to come to our place because of the logistic needs, to be able to reach out all the companies around the country. But they can go to the platform, choose the product that they want. They can make their order online, and then our back office and B2B team can be able to work on their orders remotely, and then the logistic team can be able to do the delivery. So this is an innovation that we implemented. I mean, we maybe it's not an innovation, but it's an adaptation that we integrate on our business model, because the e-commerce is a way to do business, and because our flexibility on developing and readapting our platform, we were able to do that. And the second startup, it's InnovaLab. It's a business accelerator and incubator. So we helped more than 5 startups that we incubating to transit from the normal company to online business companies. One of them, like Mr. Paul said, we had one of them that it's a healthcare company. I mean, it's a clinic. They do normally a physical treatment, a physical consultations, but now they have an online services that they call Saudi Naor. So basically, it's Saudi Naor in English. It's kind of healthcare on time. I mean, they can answer. They can answer your questions. They can do many things online, and they can be able to go to see them. So we integrated in the incubator a program that we call Transition to Digital Services. So because of the COVID-19, we think that any company have to reinvent their business model and their way to do services, and this is really important. And one of the maybe the important thing I can suggest to our audience, it's use the USSD technology, because you don't need a mobile, a smartphone to use the USSD. It's kind of consulting your credit, you know. And the USSD, it's something that mobile money services are using, etc. So yes, I think during the discussion we can give more, technologies that can be adapted to our context and African context, viewing our infrastructure and digital literacy. I think I can over to you, Ms. Jan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adalai. I want to open the floor to questions from participants. I'll kick one off. To first, Mr. Mugambi, and then to Adalai, what tools does one need to have in their toolkit to run a successful virtual business?
Say it again.
What tools does an entrepreneur need to have in their toolkit to run a successful virtual business in the African context?
Yeah, I think I started giving one. The USSD technology, like I said, we have, for example, in my country, Guinea-Bissau, and most of the countries around, the mobile penetration, it's about 91% per household. So there is a lot of opportunities. I mean, the USSD technology can help them reach many customers, many new customers. There is some complication on the implementation because there is some limitation, but they need just a simple phone to be able to do that. Even the mobile money, like M-Pesa, how they call it M-Pesa in Kenya, it's a technology based on USSD also. I mean, because they were thinking to reach more people because of the mobile penetration. And the second thing is that the social media. I think it's important to go and having just a website or having a mobile app. You will have a lot of problem and issues to bring people to your platform or your mobile application. But using a strategy on social media can help you mobilize people, because we have a lot of people in Facebook, a lot of people in Twitter, WhatsApp, etc. Even one of our incubatee that doing in business in healthcare, they connected their platform with WhatsApp. So because you have a huge number of Africans that use in WhatsApp, and leveraging from that, connecting via plugins, via APIs to those social media platforms to your solution, going to help you to reach out more people and more customers. And the third one, I think it's customer experience. The customer experience is really important. And the most your application, the most your platform, or the most your virtual business, it's the most people can come there. I mean, like I said, a lot of Africans don't have digital literacy. I mean, they need, they don't have time maybe to do that. And you cannot also teach all of them how to use your platform. So make it simple, make it very user friendly, so that you can have many customers coming in. This is a basic thing that I can share. I think it's important on this process.
Thank you, Adalai. Mr. Mugambi, what tools do young entrepreneurs need in their toolkit?
Yeah, for me, I can divide the tools into two groups. The first group is tools that actually help you to manage your team, because the team functionalities and the team operations, they need to be very well coordinated if they are virtual. Because you see, you're not seeing each other physically, but you should be able to organize the teams. And some of the tools that you can have tools like Slack. Slack is an online tool that actually is integrated to most of the other platforms like Google Drive, Gmail, plus very many other tools that you need are all integrated to Slack. So you find Slack is like a one-stop shop that can help you organize your meetings, capture your notes, you can form small groups and small teams that are addressing various components of your business. Then the second set of tools that would be very, very important are tools to manage the business now. Not just the team, but now to manage your business. For example, if you are a sales-oriented startup, you need something like there's a tool called Pipeline. Pipeline simply helps you to track your sales. It can show you how you're performing. And there are very many other tools that actually address specific types of businesses. So you need two basic types of tools. And then you also need meeting tools. Meeting tools are like what we are using today. Accelevent is a tool. Zoom is a tool. Google Meet is another tool that can help you be able to meet virtually. I would say that most of the young entrepreneurs may have a challenge with some of the tools like Zoom, because you see, Zoom, if you're using the free version, only gives you 45 minutes. And you may want to have longer meetings. So Google Meet would be more ideal because they don't charge for meetings that even go longer than a minute, than an hour. So then basic tools like WhatsApp. WhatsApp is one tool that has actually proved to really, really work because it's instantaneous. You are able to see updates almost on a live scenario. So basic tools like WhatsApp actually have been very, very useful in running and managing a virtual business. Thank you.
Thank you for those good tools. This next question is for Mr. Mugambi. As a manager and business owner, what would you say for how young Africans can make themselves ready to hire by virtual businesses?
If I'm getting your question correct, is as a business owner, what can young African innovators do for them to be ready for hire by the virtual businesses? Number one, especially in Africa, we have a very big need for developers, especially, and quality developers for that matter. I would say for young innovators, especially if you are within the technology area, it's very, very important to really step up so that you know, your development skills are high, and that is one of the areas. Then number two, for the young innovators, technical knowledge is one thing, but business skills is the other thing that you need as an entrepreneur. You really need to understand how to run a business, how to raise funds, because fundraising is a whole science by itself. You also need to develop skills in terms of partnerships, because you see, whatever you do, you need other stronger or other entities and organizations to work with you. So being able to convince other partners to work with you, that is key. And lastly, also very important to know how to make a pitch. Whatever you do, you've got to be able to make a quick pitch and get someone hooked to what you're saying. And that way, you can easily find yourself really becoming relevant in this virtual business.
Thank you. The next question is for Adalai. What are the gaps between national digital transformation policies and businesses, and how can these be bridged?
Yes, there is a huge, for me, there is a huge gap, working with Next Einstein Forum on developing a digital transformation roadmap for Africa. I had an opportunity to see how this gap is very huge. I think we have a young population, a young generation with vibes on using digital and following the transformation, what they are seeing around the world. And we have a governments with lack of vision and strategies for the digital transformation. I think people are focusing on food, on things like electricity, water, because it's still and going to be always a need for African populations. But if we don't sit and think and strategize to be able to respond to the need of electricity, water, and food, but also to see the digital transformation as something that can help us reduce costs, help people to have access to healthcare, education, and all those things, prepare our human capital so that they can be able to help the country to respond to this need of water and electricity and everything. We will stuck in the same place. And the first element for this to be connected, it's the strategy, the vision. And to help on the strategy, it is important for the private sector and the government, the entrepreneurs, young generation to sit together and discuss this, because it's not only a problem of the government, it's not only the problem of the private sector, it's the national issues that everyone have to sit together and discuss. Because we cannot talk to the young generation. We cannot talk also for the government. We cannot talk for everyone. We have to listen to everyone and then strategize to be able to cover the needs of everyone. And the other important thing I think it's really important is to leverage from experiences. There is a lot of countries around the world that have already solved these issues. That we don't need to reinvent anything. We need to work with those governments to learn and benchmark from what they do, what they did, and how they did it, so that we can readapt. The other thing also is that I can mention here is to readapt those things to our context. Maybe we cannot use everything that we saw there, but if we readapt those things to our context, it can be useful, because we can have technology that can work in US, but it cannot work here in Guinea-Bissau, for example, or in Gambia or in Senegal, etc. So it's important to benchmark, think, and readapt those solutions to what we have. So basically, the vision, it's the umbrella. The strategy, the vision is the umbrella, and then try to strategize by cluster. For example, we have technology for agriculture, technology for healthcare, technology for businesses, technology, and each of these clusters, there is entities that can have a role to do, something to help with, something to contribute. So yes, this is basically the answer I wanted to give about that question. Thank you.
Could I add maybe just one thing, just around the same? What I see as a very important need to bridge in the gap of the national policies and also digital solutions that our young entrepreneurs can do is governments or our governments need to create an enabling environment. That's key. Then number two, also providing spaces where the young people can be able to think and to innovatively or creatively come up with solutions. And some of them are creations of hubs, hubs where young people can come to experiment on their ideas. And the beautiful thing about experiments, they are low cost. Even if they don't work, there's nothing much to lose. You can rethink again and come up with a better idea. Then thirdly, coming up with incubators where if an idea or an idea is viable, how do you take it to the next level and make it into a successful business? So incubators are very, very necessary. And all this requires space. It requires mentors who can actually help the young people to grow from where they are. And especially older people like us who've done it before, hand holding these young people and taking them to the next level. That would be very, very critical. Thank you.
Just to jump on what Mr. Paul said, I think it's really important. These incubators, there is some in our continent, but the other issue is that the connection between these innovation centers, most of them are private, and the government, the people that making policies. I think this connection is important. For example, now we are using USSD. We develop many solutions on that. But if there is any policy in the government side to regulate those kind of technology. The e-commerce, we don't have any policy for the moment in our country, for example, to regulate those issues. People are using social media. If we insult someone in social media, he cannot do anything because there is any policy covering that. Our policies is for 2019, I don't remember. So yes, it's important, these innovation centers, these hubs, but the policymakers need to understand that they need to work with these young generation, are creating things, are innovating, etc. They need to readapt themselves. I mean, they need to work with private sector. They need to work with these startups and entrepreneurs to make a very adapted policies in our countries. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question comes from Deborah. What can an entrepreneur do, or what skills can an entrepreneur keep his or her business going and to keep getting customers in countries with weakening economies. So what can an entrepreneur do, or what skills do they need to keep their business going for their customer base in weakening economies?
Can I go?
Please.
Especially in countries where the economies are not very strong. And I think it's also similar to even places where the economies are strong as well. As an entrepreneur, first and foremost, for you to be a successful entrepreneur, you must meet a need. And for you to meet the need, you really have to be able to meet that need in a profitable manner. Otherwise, it beats the purpose for being an entrepreneur. So one of the things that I've seen that's critical for an entrepreneur is having the mind of predictability, or being able to predict what the users or the market needs. There are two ways of coming up with solutions. One, you can do a market study and find out what people really want, and people will tell you what they want. And if you develop that, you are likely to get some users. But the other way is to be very creative, to be able to predict what people might really, really want. And I could give an example. Someone like Steve Jobs, when he came up with the smartphone, the first smartphone, he was not necessarily driven by the research he had done in the market, but he had this hunch and this deep understanding that if he provided a product like a smartphone, people will really like it. And so he gave the market what the market didn't even know they needed, but when they saw it, they said, yes, this is what we really want. So as an entrepreneur, you need to have that creative mind, so that even if you come up with a solution, the market will look and say, wow, this is beyond even what we thought. So I would say that's a skill that you really need to have.
Thank you. Adalai, anything to add?
Yes, I wanted to add something. I think there is a keyword on this issue. The first one, some keywords, I mean. The first one is empathize. I think it's one of the very important words used on design thinking process. To, like Mr. Paul says, you need to create a business or solutions that respond to the needs of potential customers. And you cannot only sit on your chair and decide what really they need. You need to work with them. You need to use a tool that called design thinking. It's one of the best tools you can use to that process to create a very adapted, very comprehensive, and problem solver solution or business. That's the first things I think it's important. The second one, it's adaptation, or you can, if you want, you can call it resilience. You need to anytime innovate and readapt your products, your services, your business, to readapt it according to your customers' needs. Maybe today they need a solution for physical, activities, but with COVID, the situation is another. You need to readapt to adequate your business and your solution. So this is the two keys of element that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Adalai, building on what you shared, YALI has worked with hundreds or thousands of young Africans to pursue their dreams. From your experience, what can YALI do better to support young entrepreneurs, especially with new global challenges and changes caused by COVID?
Wow, it's an unexpected question. Yes, I think YALI is doing enough. I mean, YALI is doing a lot of things for us. I mean, sending many of young Africans to, to US to learn businesses, to learn civil society, government administration, and everything. This is the skill part. And there is a lot of programs going around for the YALI centers, regional centers, and everything. So it's not easy to say this is what YALI need to do, because YALI are trying every day to innovate. This kind of meetings, it's one of the initiatives that's really can help exchange and share knowledge and experience. But maybe what's coming up in my mind now is to say, maybe why not YALI push to use all these minds, brilliant minds around Africa and around the world to mentor others. Maybe it can be a mentorship platform built by YALI so that they can support the other young people that come in that want to become like them. I know for the motivation side, there is a lot of YALI that are being featured in different medias, etc., as a champion, so that the others can learn from them. But I think this, connection as a mentors and mentees, also I think to elaborate maybe a funding program for different activities. I know there is some with the USAID, but during these mentorships, if there is some funding program that can, after the mentorship program, they can support with some seed funding for those startups or those companies or scholarships or something like that, that can be helpful. It's something that's coming now in my mind, but I hope it can help to better, help and support this huge and very important community for our nations.
Thank you. That was an excellent answer, even when we put you on the spot. A question for both of you. With the rise of digitization and the growing use of social media, what advice do you have for utilizing social media for growth? Mr. Mugambi, let's start with you.
Excellent. You see, social media is this one big ocean, which you have literally everything and anything. And to me, it can be a time waster on one hand, and on the other hand, it can also be an enhancer to growth and to doing business. So the advice that I would have for the young entrepreneur is, amidst all that the social media offers, being able to, in a very clear-minded way, being able to identify the channels and the ways in which you can utilize the social media, even for your own growth. And when I mean growth, it can be, number one, your personal development as a person. You can use social media to get a lot of information that can actually help you, grow. So the challenge that I can, or rather the advice I can give is, as a young entrepreneur, be very swift to identify channels within the entire social media spectrum that actually aid to your personal development and also aid to your whatever it is that you're doing, how you can become a bigger success in a much quicker way. For example, using social media as a tool to help you access the market. That can be one of it. You can use social media as a tool of marketing your services and products. So I would say figuring out and finding out how to utilize and leverage social media to enhance your business, that is the greatest thing that as an young entrepreneur you can do.
Thank you. Adalai, what can you add on how to grow businesses with social media?
I think the first important thing is what they call e-reputation. I think you can use social media to, to grow up your business and your personality, but also, or put it in jeopardies. So I think the e-reputation is important to build your community around social media, and make sure that people seeing what they have to see in your social media. You don't need to do, like many of Africans entrepreneurs that I'm seeing, they think that they can, to have a visibility, they need to do certain things that I think that not value entrepreneurs, that not value our personalities. So the e-reputation is a key and important thing to do, to have a very important communities in social media, because having a community in social media and with good community management, you can be able to push them to your business. You can transform them to your new customers, and that it's a relation that can be created, a long-term relationship, virtual relationship, based on your strategy, your reputation, to make sure that you have this very strong relationship with rules, with very clear objectives and tractions and metrics to be able to see if it's going well or not. So basically, I think the e-reputation is important, the community management is important, and also to working on that, you can transform those communities around you, around your personality, around your business, to a new customers for you.
I think there's something I forgot to say just around social media. One of the key things that social media provides is critical mass, access to critical mass. And access to critical mass means with social media, you can reach big numbers of in a very, very easy way. So being able to leverage social media to access, to access the critical masses, that is very, very important. You're muted, Hannah.
Good morning, Abdullah and Paul. It's good to see you here. I've been listening into your session. We just lost our moderator who's having technical issues. And since I'm the backup moderator, here you have me now. So I'm just going to go in and ask the next question. I think this is a fascinating discussion that you're having, and both of you have touched on some really good points from what Hannah was telling me. And so what I would like to ask now is the role that educational institutions and ministries of education can play to prepare students better to participate in virtual economies. We know COVID will be gone at some point, but it has forever transformed the landscape. And so what would be your recommendations in terms of how ministries of education can revamp their strategies, but also educational institutions to make sure that we get students who are able to take advantage and go into this new virtual landscape and compete and contribute? Let me start with you, Abdullah, first, and then I'll come to Paul.
Okay, thank you. I think this is an important question. We were talking about, before we were talking about policy, we were talking about digital literacy. I think all this, it's important for the government to try to readapt our educational system. I think it's really important. If before we need, physical books, we need to to meet physically, to learn and have lessons, etc. Now it's time to have, e-books. It's time to see your teacher online. It's time to, and because of the lack of this strategy, many of African youth are losing 2 years now without going to school because of the quarantine and all the restrictions. So it's really time, and COVID comes to tell us that you guys need to change your way of doing things, and digital in center of this transformation. And to do that, I think the government need to re-strategize our education curriculum. The curriculum need to be rethink, and the process also need to be rethink. Yeah. We need to re-strategize our education system by doing what? By having discussions. You have people specialized in curriculums, but you have people also specialized in digital, and how to use these skills on digital to transform our education system. We need to talk to telco companies, how they can support, how they can help university and schools to have access to internet, how the government, maybe the Ministry of Telecommunication, the Ministry of Digital Transformation, how they can sit together to see how to upgrade the national infrastructure so that people can have access to technology everywhere, so that they can have access to means like tablet, computers, etc. So it's supposed to be a national and very urgent discussion between all the stakeholders and the development partners to implement a very urgent strategy for the education and to change our curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdoulaye. Let me turn it over to you, Paul.
For me, I think some of the most critical things that the ministries of education can do to be able to provide the kind of education that will prepare our young people for the 21st century, and especially for this post-COVID scenario. First of all is to adjust the curriculums so that they become competence-based curriculums, as opposed to curriculums that just teach young people to memorize and to remember stuff. But competence-based curriculum would help students, to be thinkers, to be innovators, to be designers. Exactly what Barry has said, that we need to know how to do design thinking. If this is taught at a younger age, this will be very good. Number two, being able to induct the young people, the young children, into technology at a very young age, because now technology has become an enabler. Yeah. Technology is the tool, is the means to which we can transform or accelerate transformation in Africa, and this can be introduced at a very young age. Yeah. So that we are not learning some of these things when you are old, like some of us. We learned computer when we were already in high school or somewhere, or in college, but studying these things very, very early. Then number three is helping young people to learn and to know, how do you come up with innovation? How do you come up with the new solutions? What are the processes? What's the thinking process behind innovating? And if that can be inculcated in our young people, then we will have the kind of education that will help our continent.
Fantastic. I appreciate both of you. And Catherine, thank you for sticking with us while we worked through the technical issues. The question that Abdoulaye and Paul just responded to was, what can ministries of education and educational institutions do to better prepare students to participate in the virtual world, particularly when it comes to businesses and other such things? And I think they both gave some really practical advice in terms of concrete measures that can be taken. I will turn it back to you to moderate. I think we have 5 more minutes, and I know you've been having a discussion with them. My one question that I will turn back to you, if it has been asked, that's fine. You can feel free to go to another question. But I think 2 big questions. How do we prevent the divide between rural and urban from exacerbating and growing even wider in this virtual world? And also, my second question would be to both Abdullah and Paul. What was your biggest failure trying to run a virtual business, and what did you learn from that? And then let me turn it over to you, Catherine. You can build, Jamie, you can build on those questions, or you can ask them any questions that you want them to close with in your final 4 minutes. So over to you, Jamie, and thank you so much again.
Thank you all, and apologies for the technical difficulty. I think that's such an excellent question to reflect on, and what have been your failures, and what have you learned, particularly in transitioning to running a business virtually. Adalai, let's start with you, and then we'll turn to you, Paul.
Yes, I mean a business person like startups. We always fail and learn. That's our daily basis activities. But for this case, I think it was anyone was prepared for COVID. I think even the government, even the businesses, everyone. So I think we tried to move faster and then transform our way of doing business. And some of the issues was even as an IT, we are not prepared to use many tools, like virtual tools, like he said, Slack, Zoom, etc. Those kind of tools was new, not only for the employees, but also for the management team. So it wasn't easy, and we was trying to move faster and try to transform very quickly things. And when you're trying to do things very quick and very fast, without strategy before, you can lose money. And yes, and that's a thing that I think for the future we need to prepare ourselves, like be very flexible, create very flexible businesses so that we can readapt and be more resilient for this kind of transformation. And the second thing, maybe I can close with to give Paul a chance also to give us his failures and maybe how he. What is the strategy that they used. But the second thing is that we tried. I mean, we are in a country where the taxes it's very high, and trying to run a virtual business, we didn't consider, like I said, the policy wasn't very clear, and we didn't integrate the taxes of virtual sales. Like for us, it's it's not the people are not coming to our office to buy and pay, so we didn't use all the taxes maybe we're supposed to do at the beginning, and then we lose money on that. I think the failure is we wanted to transit, but without doing research, understand. And also the lack of policy didn't help us during this transition. I think this is the 2 key things that I can share.
Paul?
I think. Sorry?
We'll give you the last word.
Okay, fantastic. I think some of the failures that personally I think I had in my journey as an entrepreneur is the thought that just because I have a good idea, that's all that's required. And I think I learned painfully over time that an idea or a good idea is just one component to a successful business. And that means as a young entrepreneur, one needs to know or understand that this idea is the nucleus of the solution or the product that you want to sell out there. But it needs to be cladded with other skills. For example, like a marketing skills, for example, to be able to package this idea that you have into something that can be sold. I keep referring to Steve Jobs. I keep referring to Apple. And I see that between Steve and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Wozniak was a great engineer, created it and did it. But he needed someone like Steve Jobs, who could actually now sell it to the consumers and convince the consumer that this is something great that you can buy. So, so ideas need to be packaged in a way that people can consume them and people can desire to pay for the services.
Well, thank you both very much for sharing your insights, your lessons, your strategies, and insights gained from your failure to all of the participants in this session today. So with that concludes our session. I hope you've learned about tools for your toolkit in navigating virtual businesses, COVID-19 and beyond. I understand now we'll move to a break, and then there will be a special African music session after the break.
Thank you.